Minister of Planning and Development in the Presidency, Trevor Menuel, is now live in the studio with us here in Johannesburg. Minister, thank you very much for coming in at this very poignant time in the history of our country. I have to begin by asking you, what went through your mind and what were your feelings when you got the news that Tata Madiba had passed on?
You know, thank you very much, Dan. Madiba was amazing, and I think that in that generous spirit of his, it kind of taken a long time to part. Hopefully the image in the minds of most people in this country would be the older gentleman at the back of a golf buggy at the World Cup final in 2010. It's a fitting image of somebody dressed for the cold, taking leave. And since then, he's parted from us. And it's been gentle. And you know, for some of us who've had privileged contact, after a while, communication stopped. And so that kind of parting allows one to prepare. It's different from a kind of sudden shock. But yet, when, and you know, in the course of the week, one had picked up that his condition was deteriorating. When yesterday evening I got a text message, it was nevertheless a shock. There's nothing much that prepares us for the final departure of somebody, and I think that my sentiments would be the same as that of every South African. Of course, I've been very privileged to work closely with him, to learn from him, to serve in his NEC, to serve in his cabinet. But I know that I'm not special because everybody who was touched by Madiba would have similar kinds of memories because that was just in the nature of how he reacted.
Yeah. I would like to take you back, if you can allow me, to 1990. Mm-hmm. You had been part of the UDF movement as a militant and an activist. And there was the groundswell that Madiba would be coming out. You were one of the first people, I would guess, in Cape Town who was involved in receiving him. What stands out for you? What can you recall from those days?
Well, firstly, I was part of the UDF delegation that visited him when he was in the house at Victor Verster. And when each of us walked in, he knew exactly who we were. He knew who we were married to and who our children, the names of our children. And so there wasn't time for pleasantries. The pleasantries were there and internalized by him. And so the memories were very durable. I was part of a small group of people who were called by former President de Klerk's office in the morning of the 10th because I was on the reception committee and asked to be at his office, in fact, to meet General Willems in what was then HF Verwoerd building on Saturday afternoon. The late Dala Omar, Bulelani Ngcuka, Saki Matkozama was with us in Cape Town. The four of us went, where we were told that Madiba would be released the following day and that he would be our responsibility. Now, you know, even if you want to plan a house meeting, you need a few days. Now this whole thing is sprung on us. And we were allowed to go off and meet with him. So we gave instructions for a big rally to be convened that evening so that we could assign responsibilities. Went off, Madiba was in his pajamas, ready, clear, rational, knew what he wanted, not excited, in control of the situation, very clear in his mind that he wanted to say thank you to the people of Cape Town, etc. All of that on the night before his release.
You say he was ready and clear, and you guys, this thing had been sprung on you. Were you ready to receive such a man after so many years, 27 years in prison?
I think history can now speak for the fact that we managed it. But no, we weren't ready. I mean, if you think of, I was just listening to the crossing to Cape Town, and there are golf buggies and radios and, you know, all kinds of things for crowd control. We had nothing. If I said to you that the person who we gave the job to take responsibility for crowd control on the Sunday was Willie Hofmeyer, normally you need somebody who's like 6'8" and as big as a house. We found the thinnest guy who's just come off hunger strike because we didn't really know what all of this was about. So we were very dependent on the goodwill of people. And so that was the Saturday. The Sunday we went through. There was. I mean, we didn't know stuff. There were 2 planes that came from Joburg. One was a jet and one was a prop, and we didn't know that these things don't quite travel at the same speed. And when eventually Winnie came, Cyril, Valley, Murphy, and we sat in the house, there was then a discussion about where he would address people. Would it be Soweto? Would it be Cape Town? Madiba's mind was made up. And so in the city, the story is we actually lost him. We lost him because we were concerned about crowd control. The car that was driving him ended up right in the middle of the crowd. They panicked and left the city, and we didn't know where they were. Until horror of horrors, the security police contacted me via a 2-way radio on a traffic officer's motorcycle to tell me where they were. We pulled it off in the end, but it was touch and go. Part of it, it's an amazing reflection of how things have changed. There are these iconic photographs of Madiba standing on the balcony of the city hall, addressing people. We know Cyril was holding the mic. He was wearing Masisulu's glasses because his had been misplaced. And there were people who we didn't know hanging off the balcony. Now you'd want a cordon sanitaire. You'd have lots of army separating everybody from the head of state. But in those days, the trust operated on such a basis that everybody could get quite close and wanted to be very close.
Now, just fast forward to the new South Africa. You are one of the cabinet ministers in the new democratic state, and you have this privilege of working close to him. As you reflect today, I mean, what are you going to be taking with you in terms of lessons that he's leaving you with?
If I said to you that I'll try and package the lessons into one thing about leadership. Go back, you're not going to find Madiba having said, I misspoke yesterday. He thought through issues. He was always a step ahead. Whether this be that fight that he had with us, the young militants on the day of his release, to have included in his speech, President F.W. de Klerk is a man of integrity. You know, Dan, it's not something we wanted to say. We wanted our leader to say. He was insistent about why he wanted to say it. When in Codeso 1, he withdrew that epithet, it had a lot more impact. He thought through these kinds of issues. When, in the wake of Chris Hani's assassination, he said to then President F.W. de Klerk, let me address the nation on television. De facto, he became the head of state. He thought through these issues. You know, you can run through all of those big decisions that he took. And in the style of his leadership, sometimes he had to persuade others. Sometimes he allowed himself to be persuaded on issues he understood less well. But the strength of his leadership was always that by the time he was ready to take a decision, he didn't think about the communique at the end of the decision. He thought about the impact of that decision. And I think that is what he leaves all of us as his heirs with, the challenge of thinking through the decisions we need to take in society.
Trevor, very briefly before you leave, what do you take with you as a human being from Mandela going forward, as a person? Taking away the political leadership thing, everything, just from a human being, what do you take forward with you?
I think his generosity. His generosity was there. It was available to everybody, which is why the loss is so great to so many people. It was a generosity of a smile, hello, how are you? The fact that he remembered the names of every journalist, every person he came into contact with frequently. The fact that he seemed available always, in spite of the reality that he wasn't. But it was always that concentration on the need to seem to be amongst the people. It's a remarkable set of attributes, and hopefully leaders understand that this is what builds nations.
Thank you very much. That's Planning Minister in the Presidency of South Africa, Trevor Menuel.
You deserve to know more.
eNCA.com.